Hi everyone, and welcome to my channel. This is a place for quiet strength, deep faith, and honest moments with God. Here, we talk about real-life faith, waiting seasons, spiritual growth, and the beauty of walking with God, even when He's silent. If you've ever felt overlooked, unheard, or unsure of what God is doing in your life, you're not alone, and you're in the right place. So get comfortable, take a deep breath, and let's grow together in the stillness. Asterisk. There is a kind of silence that doesn't just echo through the ears, but through the heart. It lingers in the moments between prayers and answers, between tears and peace, between longing and fulfillment. And when you sit in that silence long enough, you begin to wonder if God still hears you. But He does. And His silence is not emptiness. It is fullness, waiting to unfold in the right time. When God is silent, the soul grows restless. It searches for signs, for affirmations, for confirmations that the waiting is not in vain. But in the absence of sound, the soul is invited to listen to something deeper, not noise, but presence. God is not absent just because He is quiet. Sometimes, He speaks the loudest through what He withholds. Every silence from God feels different, but it carries a similar ache, the ache of being suspended between what once was and what is yet to come. And yet, this space between is where God does His most careful, most precise, and most transformative work. What feels like stillness is the beginning of sacred rearrangement. It's okay to say you're confused. It's okay to say you feel abandoned. It's okay to say you miss the voice that used to lead you. God is not offended by your honesty. He welcomes it. He leans into it. And in your admission of weakness, He draws near in ways silence cannot stop. Not every silence is a punishment. Some silences are invitations to deeper levels of trust, the kind of trust that can't be shaken by delayed answers or unmet expectations. In these places, your foundation is tested. In these places, your theology becomes reality. And in these places, you either break apart or break open. The weight of silence is a burden you were never meant to carry alone. Even Jesus, in His most silent moment on the cross, cried out, and in that cry, He gave permission for all of us to express our pain. Silence does not make you faithless. It makes you human. It makes you honest. It makes you reach further into the unseen. God's silence doesn't mean He is done speaking. It means He is doing something so holy that words are not sufficient yet. There are things He is writing in the dark that require the light of maturity to understand. And until then, He waits. Not in anger, but in kindness. There is a beauty in knowing that silence doesn't have to be figured out. It just has to be walked through. You don't need to interpret every pause. You don't need to read meaning into every delay. You just need to keep showing up, keep praying, keep breathing, keep trusting that when it matters most, God will not remain silent. Forever the soul longs for the certainty that God is still near. And yet, certainty doesn't always come through what is heard. Sometimes, it comes through what is remembered. Remember who He was before the silence. Remember how He showed up when you didn't expect it. Let memory fuel belief when presence feels distant. Some silences are healing. They give your mind a break from striving. They pull you away from the addiction to always needing a word. They remind you that sometimes love sits in the room and says nothing, and that's enough. God is sitting in your silence, not waiting for you to perform, but waiting for you to just be with Him. The most intimate moments in life aren't always filled with words. Think of a parent holding a sleeping child. Think of a friend sitting beside another in grief. Think of a lover resting next to their beloved in quiet peace. These are silent moments, and they are sacred. God's silence may be His way of saying, I'm here, let's rest. You will never graduate from needing to trust God, no matter how many miracles you've seen or revelations you've received. The silence will still visit you, not to shake your faith, but to stretch it. Trust is not a feeling, it's a posture. And silence carves out the space where trust grows deeper roots. There are times when God stops speaking because you already know what He said. He's not giving you a new word because you're still walking out the old one. And in the silence, He's watching, not judging, watching. Like a teacher during a test, like a builder during a cure, like a gardener during a season of growth. You're not failing just because it feels hard. Faith was never meant to feel easy, it was meant to feel real. Real faith wrestles in silence. Real faith cries out in the dark. Real faith feels lost, but doesn't stop walking. And real faith, even when it stumbles, still finds its way back to God's feet. God's silence humbles us. It reminds us that we don't control him, we don't manage heaven's schedule, we don't demand answers like consumers. We receive, we wait. We listen like children who trust their father, even when he doesn't explain himself. Some of the most profound revelations come not in moments of inspiration, but in prolonged seasons of silence. When there's nothing left to lean on but God, you learn how much he truly holds. You learn how deeply he sees. You learn how surely he carries you when you don't know where you're going. You may not hear him now, but he's still authoring your story. He's still marking your path. He's still placing provision where you haven't even stepped yet. The silence is not void of activity. Heaven is moving even when earth is still. Even in silence, you are being loved. Even in stillness, you are being seen. Even in waiting, you are being led. Your emotions may not confirm it, but the truth of his word never changes. He said he would never leave you, and waiting is not just about time, it's about trust. And in the waiting, something holy is happening beneath the surface of what you can see. When God is silent, he is not absent. He is working in the silence. But the work he's doing is not always around you. It's often within you. It's deep, invisible, and sacred. The kind of work that can only happen when distractions are stripped away and the noise has faded. We often pray for change around us, but God answers by changing something within us. The storm doesn't calm right away, but suddenly we're not afraid of the storm. The door doesn't open, but our hearts stop needing the door to prove that God is still good. This is the mystery of waiting. It doesn't always end with a miracle. Sometimes it ends with a transformation. And that transformation is the miracle we didn't know we needed. Waiting is not passive. It's not idle. It's not meaningless. It is the garden where spiritual fruit is cultivated. Patience, humility, faithfulness, self-control. These are not flashy gifts, but they are eternal ones. These are the fruits that last when platforms fall and people walk away. These are the traits that can carry anointing without arrogance, calling without collapse. God knows what your destiny will require, so he builds you for it while you wait. In the silence, God rearranges our values. He shows us what really matters. What we used to chase loses its shine. What we used to fear begins to lose its grip. The wait becomes a filter, and through that filter, we begin to see with clarity. We begin to see that waiting isn't about delay, it's about alignment. God is aligning our hearts with heaven, our desires with purpose, and our identity with truth. The soul must learn how to wait without conditions. Not, I'll trust you if, but I'll trust you still. Not, I'll worship when, but I'll worship now. Not, I'll obey after, but I'll obey in the middle. These declarations are forged in silence, and they are beautiful to God because they come from the place of pure surrender. When everything is still and there are no guarantees, obedience becomes an offering. Faith becomes fire, prayer becomes breath, and trust becomes a bridge over the unknown. This is what happens when you keep walking with God even when the light doesn't come on. You discover that he doesn't need to explain himself to be trustworthy. Waiting works humility into our prideful places. It shows us how much we've relied on timelines, formulas, and emotional highs. It forces us to release the illusion of control and cling instead to the one who never loses his grip. We realize that God is not a vending machine who gives on demand. He is a father who gives what is best when it is best, and only after our hearts are ready to receive it. The waiting season is often the proving season. This is where motives are tested. This is where hidden wounds are surfaced. This is where the foundation is shaken and whatever is shallow crumbles. But what remains, what's been refined in the quiet, becomes unshakable. You'll come out of the waiting not just with something, but as someone who knows how to walk with God. Even when no one else claps, there's a different kind of intimacy that grows in silence. You stop performing, you stop striving. You start listening, not just with your ears, but with your life. God becomes more than an answer. He becomes a companion. He becomes the one who sits with you when the prayers don't get answered, and your heart says, even now, I love you. In the waiting, old idols are revealed. The idol of clarity, the idol of control, the idol of results. And one by one, they fall. Not because God crushes them violently, but because in the silence, we realize they can't sustain us. We realize we don't need perfect understanding. We need perfect peace. And peace isn't found in outcomes. It's found in surrender. You may never get all the answers, but you can still trust the one who holds them. This is where your walk with God becomes less about understanding and more about surrender. Because trust is not built on explanation. It's built on consistency. And God has been consistent in love, faithful in presence, and perfect in wisdom from the beginning. Trust is forged when you choose to stand in the dark with a light that hasn't come yet, because you remember what the light looked like before. You learn to rest your heart in God's nature. And in that rest, a new kind of peace begins to grow, one that doesn't need signs to survive. Sometimes trust looks like worshiping with questions still hanging in the air. Sometimes it sounds like praying even when the last prayer wasn't answered. Sometimes it feels like staying even when you could walk away. And those are the moments heaven watches closely, not for the outcome, but for the obedience. God doesn't ask you to have all the answers. He asks you to trust the one who does, to believe that the silence is not because he forgot, but because he's writing something too glorious for your current understanding. You don't need to make sense of it. You just need to make space for him in it. Because trust is the soul saying, even if I never know why, I will still say yes. Even if I never see it work out, I will still lift my hands. Even if I have to wait forever, I will still believe you're good. This is not blind faith. It is refined faith. It is faith that has walked through fire and chose not to curse the flames. It is faith that knows trust. It isn't proven in answered prayers. It's proven in surrendered ones. You are not weak for wanting answers. You are human, but you are becoming strong every time you place your desire for answers beneath your desire for God. And that shift is where peace begins. You start to ask less, why is this happening? And more, what are you shaping in me through this? That's the pivot. That's where trust begins to rise. You may still cry, still question, still wrestle, but even through that, you stay. And that staying is what trust looks like in the waiting. You stay in the Word. Even when the words feel dry, you stay in prayer. Even when the heavens are still, you stay in love. Even when you don't feel affirmed, you stay in surrender. Even when you don't understand the story, you stay, because trust is not a feeling, it is a decision. One made over and over again, even on the days your hands tremble. God is not asking you to figure him out. He's asking you to follow him. And sometimes the path he leads you on goes through mystery. It leads you through silence. It leads you through the unknown. But every step has been planned. Every moment has been seen. And even when your understanding runs out, his presence does not. He doesn't need to explain the delay in order to walk with you through it. He walks with you in mystery, just as surely as he walks with you in miracles. The same God who split seas can hold your silence. The same God who healed blind eyes can carry your broken expectations. The same God who raised the dead can raise trust in you. Even when you don't have the map, you may not know the next step, but you can still follow the next whisper. And even when there's no whisper, you can still rest in what you already know of him. He is good, he is just, he is love, he is sovereign, and he is not finished. So trust him without all the details. Trust him without the timeline. Trust him even when the mountain doesn't move. Because maybe he's building strength in you to climb it. Maybe what you needed wasn't a door to open, but a heart that could be content before it did. Maybe what you're learning now is what will carry you when the next storm comes. Trust isn't passive. It's a bold, quiet declaration that God is still worthy, even when you don't understand the script he's writing. In one day, when you turn the page and see what he's been writing in secret, you'll be thankful you trusted him before you saw it. You'll say, now I see. But for now, just say, still, I believe. There will come a moment when the silence lifts and everything makes sense again. It may not come the way you expected. It may not be loud. It may not be flashy. It may come in a whisper, a sunrise, a sudden peace, but it will come. God will speak again. The silence will break. And in that moment, you'll realize he was never far. You'll remember every tear you cried in the dark. You'll remember every prayer that felt unanswered. And you'll hear him say, I was with you the whole time. That first word from him, after the silence, will feel like water in a desert. It will heal you. It will ground you. It will reveal that nothing you went through was wasted. You will see purpose in the pause. You will see growth in the waiting. You will see grace woven into every silent day. When God speaks again, the questions won't matter as much, because what he gives is not just an answer, it's himself, and in his presence, confusion melts and clarity rises. You'll hear him in ways you never could before the silence. Because your ears have been trained in the stillness, you know how to listen now. Not just with your mind, but with your spirit. The silence shaped you. It emptied you of noise and filled you with trust. And now you are ready for what he wants to say. Now you are ready to carry what he wants to give. What once would have made you run now anchors you in faith. What once would have overwhelmed you now fuels your worship. The version of you that entered the silence is not the one walking out of it. You are different now. Not because the silence changed God, but because the silence changed you. You walk slower. You listen deeper. You depend more fully. And when God speaks again, it won't just be a moment. It will be a marker, a shift, a holy memory that reminds you he never forgets. The silence wasn't punishment. It was positioning. He was preparing your soul to carry what's next. He was aligning your heart with his timing. He was rebuilding your identity without the need for answers. Now you don't need proof. You have peace. You don't need the whole plan. You have his presence. You don't need to rush. You have revelation. You will move differently now. You will speak with wisdom, gained from quiet places. You will love with a tenderness birthed in stillness. You will carry a calm that storms can't steal, because now you've learned the rhythm of grace, the rise and fall of revelation and rest. You'll no longer panic in the pause. You'll no longer rush the process, because you've seen what God can do in the silent seasons. You've seen how he moves when it looks like nothing is happening. You've seen the kind of person you become when you don't give up. And now, when the silence breaks, you don't just celebrate the sound, you honor the stillness that came before it, because it made you who you are. It made you steady. It made you faithful. It made you grateful. So when the silence breaks, lift your hands, not just for the breakthrough, but for the silence that shaped your praise. Worship him not just for what he says, but for how he held you when he said nothing at all. Because that is who he is, the God who speaks, and the God who stays silent, the God of the answer, and the God of the wait, the God of the mountaintop, and the God of the cave. And whether he whispers or waits, you know now he is good. If this message stirred something in your heart, if God met you in the silence, if you feel a little more seen, a little more steady, and a little more hopeful, then don't keep it to yourself. Subscribe so you never miss a moment of truth, healing, and quiet strength. Like this video if the silence has shaped you in any way. Share it with someone who's still waiting for God to speak. Your obedience might be the voice they need. And in the comments, write this as your declaration. I trust you, even in the silence. Let your faith speak, even when God is quiet. Your breakthrough may be on the other side of your worship. So, wait, and keep trusting, because the silence is never wasted.